Hi, I'm David Judson, Editor-in-Chief of Stratfor. With me today is Reva, Bhalla, our Vice President of Global Analysis. Topic today is Turkey. A lot to be said in a short space. Election on Sunday that put an end to the 13-year rise of the Justice and Development Party, or AKP. There was some degree of surprise at how poorly they did. They're still the number one party at a little above 40%, but shy of what it takes to have a majority government, which they've had for a decade and a half. This is a pretty big shift in Turkey.
It's a scenario, though, that we were taking very seriously, right? We knew that the AKP would take a hit. The question was just how big of a hit. So what were those underlying factors that contributed to it? I mean, of course, Erdogan, he ran a very polarizing campaign. He was really focused on his religious base was playing that up in a very big way. But as we saw from the vote, conservative Kurdish voters did not continue their support for the AKP. They actually went to the pro-Kurdish HDP. So that strategy has some holes in it, and that is becoming more evident. And then when we see, Turkey and Erdogan really had this very ambitious political strategy to link the Kurdish issue to his own presidential ambitions, to where he could garner Kurdish votes through the promotion of the peace process and then use those votes to augment his presidential powers. As we forecast, that collapsed on its face. And the repercussions, I think, are the election results that we saw Sunday, where a lot of support for various reasons went to this rising opposition party, the HDP, as well as the nationalist vote, which was reacting to the Kurdish peace process as well. And here we have the AKP unable to form a coalition on its own.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that obviously and clearly Erdogan fatigue had settled into the electorate, and we're seeing the results of that. Okay, a lot of frustrations in Turkey and outside of Turkey, really, with the sort of increasingly authoritarian role he's been playing in Turkey in terms of the judiciary and certainly with the media and a lot of other places. That's been checked. But is there a critical mass of political authority here to actually govern the country? Right. That's now the immediate question, as all kinds of different coalition scenarios, a minority government, new elections, all kinds of scenarios float about. What do you? I mean,
any coalition arithmetic we try, it's a very chunky blend, right? Because you have essentially, the HDP is comfortable staying in the opposition. It doesn't want to undermine its credibility by linking up with the AKP, even though that may seem, you could see some alignment there, of course, on the Kurdish peace process. Aligning with the nationalist MHP kills that peace process completely. We're seeing, these preliminary talks now with the main secular, center-left CHP. We have to see how far that goes, but the conditions are going to be very hard for Erdogan to swallow, where he is going to have to commit in some sense to, respecting the Constitution and his presidential powers. And it's really not clear that Erdogan will be bound by any agreement he makes to the CHP.
And I think, an alliance with CHP also really invites the question of foreign policy, because that's probably where they most strongly divide. 3 or 4 years ago, Erdogan was the rising star. Turkey was the model Islamic democracy that people were talking about. Everybody was sort of there was hardly a think tank on the planet without the Turkish model essay somewhere on its website. That's disappeared. The Qataris are really the only ones left in the Middle East that would even buy Erdogan lunch. And obviously there's been a lot of divisions with the CHP over foreign policy towards the greater Middle East generally and Syria specifically. You turn toward the West, with the rising resurgence of Russia, there's been a lot of talk of Turkey playing some kind of a role in the so-called intermarium, that I hate the word new Cold War, but I can't think of a better one, some sort of new post-NATO buffer to contain Russian ambitions in Eastern Europe. So you got a foreign policy conundrum to the east and a foreign policy conundrum to the west, and that seems like a particularly hard thing to square at the juncture of the CHP and the AKP?
No, certainly. I mean, so let's talk about, the East first, right? When we look at Turkey's relationship in the region, and particularly with the Islamic world, sure, Turkey saw itself as a model, but the rest of the region was very skeptical. Even talking to anybody within the Gulf Arab states, they would always say, we'll see it when we believe it. Turkey's not all cracked up to be, what it's presenting itself as. And so Turkey is trying to lead without followers. Right. And as you mentioned, Qatar is really the only one that's able to align itself with Turkey. We just saw this defense agreement ratified recently. And the two are aligned in their propensity toward backing more Islamist-leaning factions within the region as they're trying to reshape the Middle East in their vision. Obviously, that's going to meet a lot of resistance from Saudi Arabia and the contingent that it leads within the Gulf states. But Turkey is playing a very risky game here in its foreign policy. Even in Syria, with its focus on toppling the Assad regime, the assumption that Turkey's preferred factions are going to fill the power vacuum that results is a huge assumption. And it's not, it's not clear, certainly not likely, that a post-Assad situation results in a scenario that, is anything other than, a Libya situation where you have the continuous warring amongst factions. And then on the Western side, a lot of policymakers in the U.S., I think, look at Turkey with this sort of nostalgia that where is the Turkey of the 1950s, the willing junior partner wanting to come under the security umbrella of NATO and the United States, following the Truman Doctrine and everything else, with a very secular orientation. This is a Turkey that has some general alignment of interests with the West, when it comes to counterbalancing Russia, counterbalancing Iran, but very, very different tactics in how it wants to achieve those goals. And that's where I think that disconnect is really going to be just more severe as Turkey tries to be more assertive.
Final thought, Friday will be Erdogan's first meeting with another foreign leader, Putin. They're meeting in Baku. Any guesses on what they might be talking about?
It's all energy right now. Energy is the huge focus where Putin is really trying to push his Turk Stream strategic pipeline, and Turkey is willing to play along at this point. Turkey is trying to show itself to be open to all options, play the neutral card. And again, that's something that could undermine those Western energy diversification efforts if Turkey signs on to Turk Stream and that actually moves somewhere.
So a lot of uncertainty that we can be certain about. So thank you, Reva.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here at Stratfor.